Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Bosserman, founder of Boss Tax Law and a tax controversy attorney. And being a tax controversy attorney means that I often represent taxpayers in high stakes tax court cases. And these are often disputes worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. Today in this video, I want to bust 5 dangerous myths about tax court that I've heard are floating around. Myths that can cost you serious money if you believe them when you're involved in a tax court case. Without further ado, let's get to number 1. So myth number 1, tax court is just like Judge Judy. It's quick, dramatic, informal, and decided all in one day. So this belief is completely wrong, and it unfortunately sets a lot of taxpayers up for failure. Tax court is a federal court. There's real federal judges appointed by the president with IRS attorneys working the cases. This isn't a quick resolution. Cases often take at least 12 months to resolve and can take longer if cases end up going to trial or are extremely complex. The reality is that the IRS attorneys and tax court judges are extremely thorough, especially when significant dollars are at stake. They're going to want to see supporting documentation, possibly hear expert testimony or do formal discovery. And the judge is definitely going to want to understand complex tax law if that's at stake in your case. So if you go into a tax court case expecting a quick TV style resolution, that's not going to be the case. You'd be setting yourself up to lose because when it comes to tax court cases, preparation is key. So myth number 2 is that you can't win against the IRS in tax court. The deck is stacked in the government's favor. But this defeatist attitude often keeps people from fighting legitimate cases. The truth is that taxpayers do win tax court cases. And in fact, many taxpayers achieve at least some sort of victory, whether full or partial, by taking their case to tax court. But here's an important key, is that most cases actually settle before trial, often with significant taxpayer victories. So very few tax court cases actually go to trial. And in my practice, I've seen settlements that have reduced my clients' tax bills by 90%, 80%, 70%, very high percent of what the IRS claimed the taxpayer owed. And the IRS often makes mistakes, especially in complex situations. They lose records during the audit process. They might misapply tax law, ignore legitimate deductions. When you have the facts and law on your side and the resources to fight the IRS properly, the IRS will often settle rather than risk losing at trial. So the belief that you can't beat the government is just incorrect and is one that has cost taxpayers millions of dollars by not actually taking their case to court. Myth number 3, you have to pay the tax first before you can dispute it in tax court. So this belief is backwards. So tax court is actually the one place you can actually challenge the IRS without having to pay first. And that's kind of the whole point. If you don't owe the tax, you shouldn't have to pay it. But if you want to sue the IRS in another court, you can also bring tax cases in federal district court or the Court of Federal Claims. Then yes, you have to pay the tax the IRS says you owe first and then sue for a refund. But one of the reasons tax court exists is so you don't have to do that. You can challenge and dispute your taxes before paying. And this is especially crucial for high value cases. Imagine having to pay a $2 million proposed assessment to the IRS upfront while you fight it. Many people and business owners just aren't able to do that or come up with that chunk of money, which is exactly why tax court exists. But the catch is in order to take advantage of tax court, you only have 90 days from when the IRS mails you a notice of deficiency in order to properly petition your case to tax court. So if you miss this deadline, your only chance is to pay first and then sue. So as soon as you get that notice of deficiency, it's important to reach out to a tax controversy attorney to review your case and get everything in line. Because if it comes up to the deadline, you might not be able to file in time, or you're going to be scrambling to get things in a row. And if you miss that 90-day deadline, you're going to have to figure out some way to pay the IRS and then sue first. So get your ducks in a row as soon as you receive that notice of deficiency so you can properly take your case to tax court and avoid paying the tax first. Myth number 4, you need a lawyer for small tax court cases. This one's tricky because it's almost partially true. So for regular tax court cases, especially the high stakes cases I handle, I absolutely recommend using experienced tax controversy counsel. But for small tax court cases, and there's special procedures for cases under $50,000 in dispute, so those are the ones I'm talking about, it's specifically designed to make it easier for individuals to represent themselves. For example, the rules are relaxed, the judges are often more patient, and I've seen people successfully represent themselves in these smaller cases in tax court. I usually don't handle these cases in my practice. I focus more on the complex, high-stakes cases. But for those disputes where under $50,000 is at issue, utilizing the small case procedure can be a great option if you can't afford an attorney. The trade-off is that if you use the small case procedures, you lose the right to appeal if the IRS or if tax court doesn't decide in your favor. While you don't need a lawyer and you always are able to represent yourself if you want to, you should seriously consider at least getting a consultation from an experienced tax attorney in your case, especially if it's approaching or above that $50,000 threshold. Now we're on to myth number 5. Tax court judges, they're just IRS employees who always side with the government. So this belief is just wrong, but many people believe that the deck is stacked against them in tax court. Tax court judges, like I mentioned before, they're federal judges that have been appointed by the President of the United States and are confirmed by the Senate and serve a lifetime term, similar to, say, Supreme Court judges or other federal judges. They actually have nothing to do with the IRS. They're independent of the IRS, even though all they do is work on tax cases. In fact, many tax court judges are actually former private practice attorneys who spent their careers representing taxpayers against the IRS. So they might actually understand the taxpayers' perspectives better than almost anyone. It's true that the IRS wins most cases that go to trial, but usually that's because most people who make it to trial just have weak cases. People with strong cases, the big money cases, these often settle. But when you have good facts on your side, the law on your side, and the resources to present your case properly, tax court judges will rule in your favor if the facts and law are on your side, regardless of the amount at issue. They're a truly independent judiciary and aren't just part of the IRS that they're working undercover or always decide in the government's favor. So if you have a strong case, you should definitely challenge it in tax court. So there you have it. I've just quickly run through 5 myths about tax court that could cost you real money. The bottom line to remember is this: if you receive a notice of deficiency from the IRS, don't let these myths stop you from taking your case to court. Tax court exists so you can protect your rights and also challenge the tax you owe without paying it before going to court. So if you're dealing with a significant IRS dispute, the kind that high stakes, high dollar amounts that I often am involved with and specialize in, I'd recommend not trying to go it alone. The stakes are way too high to make mistakes that could cost you dearly. Thanks again for watching, and remember, when the IRS attacks, boss has your back.